is that we should read historical facts and references that will tie everything together. So the problem is we have distance because no one wants to accept like
content over everything.
We say Kemet or we say Egypt, you understand? But yet all our prophets went there, got their education, and became knowledgeable nabis or whatever you want to say. Do you get what I'm saying? And then left out to go and school and educate different people. So I think people running away from that main fact is what's causing the problem. You can't say you're Muslim and not know that you are half Egyptian.
Well, I know I'm full Egyptian because I'm.
Yeah, you're. Yeah. I hear you.
I know what he's thinking. No, you're not.
Modern. Yeah. Fairy tale killer.
No,
Yeah, we gotta kiss that fairy tale. Brother, I love, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Definitely. Yeah, brother.
The thing is, for us, is like we do believe that. You know, I mean, we have a tradition in Islamic texts that say that there were 124,000 prophets. Now, some have said that this is a weak tradition and so on, but the idea is we believe that there were, because Islam is submission to God, oneness, tawheed, believing in one God and so on,
Right.
then when God wanted to do that, he sent prophets to every nation and every time, right? And if there was not a nation that he sent prophets to, then they were called Ahlul Fatra, which literally means the people of transition. But 124,000 prophets came to the people, right? And the idea is to come to different communities. So Islam as a religion, as a concept of submission, is not meant for any specific racial or ethnic group. It's meant for the whole of humankind. That's why I find the Quran, it says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا كَافَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَلَكِنْ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. We have not sent you except for all of humankind. But most people don't know about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, are you gonna say that any of the nabis and the prophets that came were not related to each other?
No, they're all related to each other. In a
Okay.
sense, right?
So how can you send a prophet to a different nation if all the prophets are related?
Yeah, so like
One nation.
for example, like you mentioned Egypt or Kemet or whatever.
Yep.
So we know for sure that there were prophets sent there because they're mentioned in
they
books.
came from there.
They came from there, yeah.
Okay.
Not sent there, they came from there.
Pardon?
They were not sent there, they came from there.
Some were sent.
Yeah,
but
some were sent and some were
Going
came,
back home, basically.
Yeah, going on. True,
wherever
true.
it may be, but they were there and they were preaching the message. Yeah.
Right.
So Moses was someone like that. For us, Moses is
Was Moses an Egyptian, or was he Israelite?
He was
or-
for us. He was an Israelite. Moses was an Israelite.
Right.
But
Excuse
what?
me, your friend Alida is
What happened?
fully invited to Maku.
Okay, well, I'll speak to the... No. That has to be dealt with him. He got himself into that.
No, you should back him up.
Nah, I don't back anyone.
That was good.
Yeah, you back with it. Right now, you back with it.
Ahmed Ali as well. Yeah, we can have Ahmed Ali.
No.
Come and
Okay.
kill his fairy tale as well.
So what? He's a grown man. He can do his own thing. He went in there. You know, there's no fighting going on. Otherwise, I'm sure the G7 will back him. You don't want to throw him in the line. So
go on.
No one gave the signal.
Yeah, for us, I get it though, but I get the whole Eurocentric narrative though. I get the whole the fact that Jesus had to be white and that he had to be at a certain place at a certain time, and it's all like away from Africa. And that's a very Eurocentric narrative, which we don't subscribe to, by the way. You know, we say that the earth is a big earth, you know, and the geography is quite wide. And so if God wants human beings to be guided, he will give them that spiritual opportunity wherever they may be. And if he doesn't, he will test them independently on the day of judgment. And the idea is about tawheed, submission, you know, and that's what we believe in. So it's a very pure, respectable monotheism that we're putting forward.
Could I ask a question? If prophets were sent to every nation, can you tell me the prophet that was sent to the Chinese people?
Not all the prophets were sent. So we said that there were some. The Quran says there are some people that were called Ahlul Fatra, which literally are transitional people. So, for example, the time between Jesus and Mohammed, there was no prophet at that time. Right? There was no. That's 600 years. There was no prophet. But they were called Ahlul Fatra. So there's a treatment of those people which will be moved to the day of judgment. They will be tested and tried to the day of judgment. Now, the Quran says, it mentions 25 prophets by name in the Quran. The 25 prophets are mentioned by name. But the Quran also says, مِنْهُمْ مَنْ نَقْصُصْهُمْ عَلَيْكَ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ نَقْصُصْهُمْ عَلَيْكَ. That I told you about some of the prophets and I didn't tell you about other prophets. So in other words, there's not an exhaustive list of prophets that are mentioned in the Quran. It's a suggestive list. So some of the prophets are mentioned in the Quran. So we don't know of all the prophets. So some people might say, what about Buddha? Do you get it? So we won't say like, look, Buddha, we're not going to say that he's definitely a prophet. We can't say that because he's not in the Quran, for example. But we can't deny that he was a prophet. Okay. He could have been a prophet and then his message was corrupted along the way. And therefore, you know what I'm trying to say? There was a religious group that kind of moved away from pure monotheism and so on. So the thing is, Tawheed, the idea of submission, is something which naturally resonates with people. Right. You know, that there's a creator out there. There is a sustainer, a maintainer, a power, you know, an entity, the knowledgeable one, the wise one, you know, and the prophets, all they do and all the messengers do is just tell the people to worship in that creator, as simple as that, and to do good to their fellow man. Okay. And they came with two things. They came with that message and they also came with some miracle, some evidence to show that they were truthful, you know.
Who brought the law?
So what law are we talking about?
The law of the Quran. The law is in the Quran.
So the Quran...
What prophet, sorry?
Yeah, so obviously we believe God sent down the law, which is in the Quran. And so the long story short is God.
So, was there law before the Quran?
Yeah.
Where did the law come and who did God to?
So for example, we had the law of Moses and Jesus, which was sent to Musa and Abraham and so on. There was always a law.
Is it the same law?
For the most part, but here's what we believe, right? In the minutiae, there are abrogatable laws. So in other words, there's a law that can come and abrogate another law. Yeah? But in principle, there's some static things that will never change. Okay. So Tawheed, the idea of one God, that can never change. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like being good generally to your fellow man, that can never change. But there are some specific little minutiae details which can be abrogated. It can be changed because certain communities need this and some communities don't need this. So that kind of thing can be abrogated. There can be a change in that respect. But in terms of an overall change, no. Or in the specific, in the fundamentals, it can never be.
So we're now, the Sharia law that we're using is the laws of Musa. Is that what we're saying?
No, because for the most part, it's fair to say that. But there are some things which have been abrogated. Now, obviously, so Jews will say we don't believe in abrogation, for example, yeah? Mm-hmm. But that can easily be disproved. Like, for example, abrogation is the idea that you have a law, and then another law comes after, and it kind of repeals that first law. Right. So, for example, that you can. There was a time where drinking alcohol or being intoxicated was not something which was you could do it, yeah. But then Allah said in the Quran, you can't do it. You can't do it. So there was an abrogation there, yeah. Okay. So abrogation means repeal. So the other one goes. Now, in regards to the Jews, there's a clear story which we all agree on that shows that the Jews believe in abrogation. Do you know what story that is? You know when Abraham got his son in the Old Testament thing, it's Isaac, and he was about to kill his son, and the night was replaced with a sheep thing, yeah. So if it was no abrogation, because there was an initial command, and the command is a law. So the initial command was to sacrifice the son. But that command was repealed by the second command, which was not to sacrifice him, because there's going to be some other sacrifice that you put in his place. So even within prophets, you can see that there's movement from law to law, and that's an abrogation.
Go on.
For me, I don't know about Abraham, but before Abraham, was there a law sent to other people before Abraham?
Yeah, so Noah came before Abraham, for example. There was a law sent to him, and he was told to be good to his people, to his community, you know, to keep. And the main thing that they always sent to do is to keep away from the idols, to the shirk, the association of God, trying to make something level with God. Because when you try and make something level with God, that's when you commit shirk, polytheism. And that's what will, and the prophets would say, lead you to the path of hellfire.
But I don't see that in Africa, though. I don't see that happening in Africa.
In Africa?
Where I come from, I don't see no idol worship in Africa.
There's idol worship everywhere, to be honest. Like, Africa's a big continent, and it's like, I don't know how many people don't run it.
When you say idol worship, like, I know about giving reverence, but I don't know about idol worship.
Yeah, okay, but maybe it's not a thing. Yeah, I agree. The African, for us, we believe that the African people were much more receptive than, for example, from our perspective, from a historical angle, the Europeans, in terms of accepting the law. That's why when when Islam spread to West Africa, it was much more an easy reception and accommodation of the religion. They accepted Tawheed quite easily. There was
I
some.
beg to differ.
Pardon?
I beg to differ as well.
Well, yes, it's
I
something
want to
that
ask a
happened.
question. I want to ask a
Tawhid
question.
went the other way.
You see, with
Came back.
the Prophet, peace be upon him,
Yeah.
his parents, were they idol worshippers?
Yeah, so
Classed as idol worshippers?
So,
would you say?
according to one hadith in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet's father, he was some guy came to the Prophet, and he asked him, "Where's your dad?" He said, "My dad and your dad are in hellfire." So, according to that narration, some say that okay, he was an idol worshipper. There's some discussion about it.
What was Muhammad's dad's name?
Abdullah.
What does Abdullah mean?
He was a slave of Allah.
So, you see the contradictory
Go on.
idea and term in the sense of he is supposedly from the Quraysh. The
Yeah.
Quraysh are idol worshippers, it seems, right? And he's
Father
going
is
to be called
Abdullah.
Abdullah,
Yeah,
slave or servant of Allah.
Yeah, but a lot of people are called something, but they do something else, innit? But
That doesn't make sense.
How is he the son of Allah?
Unless
by the way, there's some Muslims that argue on that line. So some say, okay, we have to do ta'wil of this hadith and so on. But
No, but I want to stick with the name.
Yeah.
If his dad's name is Abdullah,
yeah,
slave of Allah, this was before Muhammad was born.
right?
yeah.
Who was worshipping Allah before Muhammad?
So
And the father doesn't name himself, does he?
No.
His father named him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of people worship God. Abraham, Moses, Jesus, the communities, a lot of people work. So we don't believe Islam started with Prophet Muhammad. We believe Islam started with the first man.
Okay.
Because
We've
Islam
added-
means submission to God.
Okay.
So Muhammad came, the Quran says, "لَا نُفَرِّقُ بَيْنَ أَحَدٍ مِّن رُسُلِهِ." We don't distinguish at all between the different prophets.
Now, is that modern Arabic or is that classical
Classical Arabic.
That's in the ancient Arabic,
Yeah,
yes.
that's the Quran.
With no vowels, no?
Yeah.
No vowels.
Yeah, that's how it
Your
was.
Quran has no vowels.
What, my Quran?
Your Quran has no vowels. Is that what you're saying?
No vowels, no diacritical marks.
Yeah, no diacritical marks, none of that.
The one that I memorize or the one that I read?
The one that you read.
The one I read has diacritical marks.
Right. And that is new.
It came
That's
about in
not-
the 3rd century.
Right. That's
Came
not
about.
original. The original has no diacritical
Yeah,
marks.
but do you know, like for example, a lot of people don't understand how this works. So, like for example, your cap says what does it say? Diamond, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I can read that. You can read that. He can read that. But say for example, we bring someone who doesn't know the English language to read this cap which says diamond, yeah. They might find it actually quite difficult to read it because they say, why is it I and A creates this I diamond sound, yeah? There's something in the English language called the schwa, which is a very common, probably the most common vowel sound that you can make. And when new learners learn a new language, they have to learn English with what is referred to as like the learner signs. So that's why you have the Cambridge Learner Dictionary, yeah? So here the point is that for me and you, we don't need no diacritical marks when we're reading the English language. But for a new learner of the language, they need the diacritical marks.
Yeah.
The same way, in the early communities, the Arabs, when they read the Quran, they did not require the diacritical marks because those diacritical marks, it's neither there, here nor there for me. If I saw the diacritical, the signs on the word diamond, I don't need it.
Is that because the language is originally oral?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it would make more sense.
Yeah,
So if to get the marks at a certain point, remember,
Yeah.
in the beginning it had no vowels.
So
You understand?
One language, everyone knew what it
But
was.
we know why it had no vowels because they
People knew.
spoke it.
Yeah, yeah.
They spoke it.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
mouth
So
to ear.
People knew it.
Right.
So the thing is, the reason why in the 3rd century AH, people said, okay, well let's move it. Let's put the diacritical marks. Is because Islam started spreading rapidly around the world. So obviously now you had these new learners coming into the Arabic language. They needed to stabilize the scaffolding, the linguistic scaffolding.
Right.
So those diacritical marks aim to serve a purpose, which in this case was a linguistic purpose of trying to facilitate the language for those people.
Right. Now, once you put diacritical marks,
Yeah.
which we're saying are vowels or masculine and feminine, right?
Now that would be that's within the language. Like you don't need the marks for that.
Oh, so you don't need the marks for
For
that.
the masculine and feminine. Yeah.
Right. So the masculine and feminine is already identified in the word.
In the word, yeah.
Right. So then when you add vowels or when you add things, does
Yeah.
it change the sound of the word?
The thing is, like in Arabic language, there's something called i'rab, which is something which is in Arabic and Hebrew and other Semitic languages, but it's not actually in English. But the idea is that every third, like the last letter of the word, has either one of 4 different signs. Now, an Arab would know how to recognize those signs quite easy because they know what you call the i'rab, the grammatical forms. But someone who's learning the Arabic they might not know how to recognize or reconcile these marks. So for that, which changes the meaning and the forms, you need to know. Yeah, you need to know.
You heard
so
it. Change the meaning and the form. So it does change when you add vowels. That's plain and simple. Well, once you put the diacritical mark,
depends on what you put
change
the
the language.
It depends on what you put the marks.
You change the meanings of the word.
What, so has more than one meaning for the word, you mean?
Well, obviously, it completely changes it in some respects.
No, the diacritical marks, if, for example, we put them in a certain way, because you know how the Quran was revealed? It was revealed with 3 different things. Then that's one of the things about the Quran. It's a preserved book. So it was revealed with you had number 1, you had the written form. And you're right to say in the beginning there was no
number 1 was the oral.
All right, fine. Well, I'm not putting that in order, but yeah, you can say you
number 1 is oral. Yes.
Number 1 is oral. Yeah. Number 2, you had you can say the written form. Yeah. And number 3, you had the Arabic language. So this triangulated format ensures that the meanings and the vowelations and the sounds, what you say, is always going to be said the way it should be said or the way the Prophet said it. So it wasn't just, for example, like let's go back to your cap. Yeah. I know it's just one word, but say for example, you teach your son and 10 other students, this word, you say it like this.
Yeah.
You give him your cap or you give him that word diamond, and now he knows, not only he's got the physical written diamond where it says diamond, but he can say the word diamond. He's been taught to say the word diamond, and all of your friends, or his friends, let's say 10 other friends, know how to say diamond. Now, so there's an oral aspect where you've been tested and taught how to say it.
Right.
There's a written aspect, and there's also, you could say, a linguistic aspect, because they might be native to the English language anyway. They might know how to say diamond anyway. So these 3 things there ensure that the meanings are going to be preserved until after generations.
So linguistically, which is obviously my expertise, I study linguistics.
Okay, nice.
The whole point is that when we go to the root, like say Arabic, then we either go to the Syriac, where it came from, or you could say Aramic, because the Aramic is the original Hebrew, and then from the Hebrew you get the Arabic. So we can see what? You don't agree?
Yeah, because what it is like from what?
Shalom. Shalom.
Hebrew
Shalom.
is a dialect from Arabic.
Shalom.
Well,
Shalom or salam. Same word.
Let's continue with Mohammed and Hijab. But linguistically,
And Hebrew is not even Hebrew.
It's not it's
Aramic is the real language. Yeah? That Hebrew, that Arabic is translated from. Get that right. It's translated from, I'm telling you, that is translated from, is German and Yiddish, to give you Arabic. To give you Hebrew. You understand? So you have to know the root of what you're talking about. So when we talk about Hebrew, you're actually speaking Yiddish. Unless you're speaking Aramic or Shuric, you get me, or Syriac, you're not speaking the ancient texts or the languages of the ancient texts.
There's a bit of confusion there. I'll tell you why. There's language. You're right to say there's language families. So you have the Semitic language families, Syriac, obviously Aramaic, and Hebrew and Arabic, and so on, and other languages. Now, from what I've read, linguists on that particular point differ as to what preceded what.
Right.
One of the theories is that there was something called the Lugha Simawiyya al-Umm, which is the mother Semitic language. And of that, there were derivations of different languages. Of them is Arabic, Hebrew, Aramaic, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Some say no, Arabic preceded Hebrew, and some say no, Hebrew preceded Arabic. It's all a conversation, right? That linguists have, and I'm sure, you've done some research on
Well,
that yourself.
are Israelites before Muslims?
No, but that's different to saying, are there Israelites before Arabs?
It makes sense to say that. Are there? Or to ask the question.
We'll say that basically from the biblical narrative, Abraham had 2 sons, right?
Right.
So obviously, if you had 2 sons, Isaac and Isaac and Ishmael existed pretty much at the same time. Right. So they went to 2 different parts of the earth, and obviously the people of so Ismail himself. There's a discussion among linguists: is Ismail an Arabic word?
Right.
Or is it not an Arabic word? And the reason why there's a discussion is if he was the father of the Arabs, then did Arab result as a result of him speaking it, or his progeny speaking it?
But then you also got one problem. If I live somewhere, I go somewhere, I still speak my language.
Yeah. Say again?
I'm still speaking my language.
Yeah.
I don't just because I'm on a new lineage, doesn't give me a new language. I'll still be speaking the same language I was speaking
Of my forefathers,
my forefathers.
Yeah.
grandfather. And,
Yeah.
So
So
what
that-
language is Ishmael speaking?
So that's the question. That's a really good question. In fact, that's an excellent question. 'Cause what happened was obviously Abraham. There's almost no doubt that he didn't speak Arabic, yeah, because he lived in the Mesopotamian Empire. The language was not Arabic. So that language that he taught his son when he was communicating with his son, he didn't communicate in Arabic. It's a very difficult case to make. Whatever he communicated with his son, and then his son went on to, let's say, for example, the Arabian Peninsula or the areas of the Arabs. The language that was then developed as a result of that communication, what was it? Whatever we know is that it then became Arabic, but when it became Arabic in the conventional sense and the forms change and so on, that's a question of linguistics, and we can't really put our finger on a point in time where say Ismail started speaking Arabic at this time or his progeny started speaking Arabic at that time. The same thing could be said about Hebrew, but it's a very complex kind of conversation. I think that it's difficult to be definitive about.
I think Hebrew is a people, so that's different. Hebrew is not a language, it's a people.
Okay,
It's not even a it's not even a people. It's just a description.
Traditional people, yeah.
Unless you know, like you speak the language of the Arcadians of that time, then you would know that the word Hebrew is to travel, to cross over, to cross two rivers.
So what about
especially the
that language of the Old
Tigris-Euphrates.
Testament? What would you refer to it as?
The language of the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Well, originally, that was Aramic or Aramaic, as they say. The New Testament is
Whatever you want to call
Aramaic
it.
and, well, mainly Greek.
Whatever that language is called, whatever you want to call it, that language is a byproduct of what is you could say a sub-compartment of the language of Abraham. So whatever the language of Abraham was, his sons developed that language, which is commonly referred to as Hebrew. You can call it whatever you want, but which is the language of the Old Testament. And then you had the sister language, one of the sister languages of that language, which is Arabic.
Right.
So that's why you'll find there's a lot of continuity between the two languages, like Salam and Shalom, for example,
That's
like
right.
you were
that's
mentioning,
right.
right?
Yeah.
But there's also like a Nevi and Nebi and so on. And obviously the letters are very much similar, if not
Right.
very much. There's a lot of continuity before the like Alif and Alif, and Mem and Mim and Mem, Dalit and Dal, and so on.
So,
I go back to the Quran thing. So who decided to put the Quran in book form? Do you know?
So that's a very beautiful question. So the Quran itself says, "Inna alayna jama'ahu wa Qur'ana." That to us, God is speaking now, is its composition, yeah, i.e. its composition, yeah, and its recitation. So with this and the fact that the Quran refers to itself as kitab itself, which means book, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ, it was understood by the early generation that the Quran is one book. It should be compiled in one book form. So when did that originally happen? Obviously at the time of the Prophet Muhammad himself, it was written, yeah? It wasn't compiled and put into book format until Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, who immediately preceded him. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he put it into, he told Zayd and others, like he made a council to put it into book form. And in that process of putting it into book form, he got the Sahaba, some of the Sahabas that were the Qurra, which were the reciters and memorizers of the Quran, to come together and to agree that this is exactly how we heard it from the Prophet. So when they put it in that order and when they wrote it all down, that was an agreement among them that, okay, this was how we heard it from the Prophet.
So that book, which they compiled straight after the Prophet died,
Yes.
Abu Bakr, is still available now.
Yes. Because there was a second council. Because what happened was when Islam spread at the time of Uthman al Affan, there was a second council that happened because people started writing their own books. So you had the standardized Quranic Mus'haf of Zayd, yeah, of Abu Bakr's time. And then after that, when there was a proliferation of the Islamic Empire and power, so certain people from different non-Arab tribes, obviously their language skills were not as good. So they started writing the Quran and they started writing it with mistakes. Now the issue was, if you write the Quran with mistakes and people further generations get a hold of that book, they could treat it potentially as the actual word of God. So what Uthman Affan did, he said, bring all those books together and burn them. We don't want any mistake in the book of God.
When did that happen? How long after the Prophet did that happen?
So Uthman Affan, he was around 30 years after the Prophet Muhammad. So about 25 years to 30 years after the Prophet Muhammad.
So,
Yes.
so now the Quran of Abu Bakr, you say you still
2 years after. So right after the Prophet
you
Muhammad.
say that's still available.
Yeah. So the one of Abu Bakr is that one.
that was under the bed.
Yeah, under the bed of Hafsa. Yes, he knows. So what happened was. Pardon?
Sorry?
So it was gathered, and they just made sure that everything corresponded to that particular reading at the time of Uthman 25 years later. So, and that's why you'll find even now, the Sana'a manuscript of the Yemeni manuscript is actually, carbon dated. So not only do we have the
I don't believe in carbon dating. So.
yeah, but they got that as well. I don't believe in it as well either. We don't use it as a method of preservation, but it's there. It's carbon dated to 651.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So the Quran, which Abu Bakr compiled, did it have the vowel marks in it?
No. Those ones that have vowel marks in it. So as we said, the vowel marks came about 100 years after, maybe more.
And who decided to put the vowel marks in?
I actually believe it was. There was two things that were done. Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. So Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi, he did what he tajdi' of the Quran to 30 just. This guy was like a tyrant, yeah. But he decided that the Quran is going to be like, okay, this is how we're going to read it, like into 30 juz or divide it into 30 juz. But it was the same content. And he also put the vowelation marks because Islam started spreading too much into different areas. So he started to put those kind of like linguistic stabilizers for the people to be able to read it.
But the Rasim was the same.
The Rasim was the same, so the font and the writing and all that kind of stuff was the same.
Do you know what's the Rasim? You don't know maybe what's the Rasim?
No.
Sorry, the Rasim is the
Is that why you get like the Dul Quran, the Walsh Quran, and the House Quran?
Yeah.
So the one thing which keeps me baffled as well.
Yeah.
The honor and king verse. Surah. Where I'm the honor, he's the honor of the day, the king of the day.
Yeah.
Which word was revealed to Muhammad?
Both. So honor and king were both revealed to Muhammad, yeah? So what we have is we have 10 Qurra. Qurra are the reciters of the Quran, yeah? Now them 10 Qurra were the ones who testified with chains of narration which were mass transmitted up to the Prophet Muhammad that this is the way that they heard it. And they had the written form, the written book, in order to read it like that. Now, the word Malik in Arabic is spelled Mim, Alif, Lam, Kaf. Yeah, so it's 4 letters. Now, the thing is, the way it's actually written in the Mus'haf, in the Quran, is Mim, Lam, Kaf, with what you call an Alif Khanjariya, which means that it's the lexical item is facilitative of the two readings. And it was intentionally made to facilitate as much of the readings as possible because obviously we know that the Quran on selective words have 2 ways in which you can recite it.
I understand
So is that word masculine or feminine?
Masculine. Malik is masculine.
Malik
Yeah, it's masculine.
is masculine.
Yeah.
It's Malika,
I think you need
is
to check
feminine. Malika is a
Yeah.
feminine.
Malika is feminine, but Malik is masculine. Yeah.
Both.
No,
No, there's
both
only
of
one
us.
in
you
it.
need.
Malik and Malik is both.
There's only one in it.
What does it sound for
So
feminine?
now there's you're saying Malik.
He's not asking like a.
No, yeah,
asking-
you're
it's
asking
not-
Malik.
it's feminine.
You say Malik and Malika is 2 different words, yeah?
Yeah, but that's not the 2 that we're talking about. We're talking
It's
about Malik
feminine,
and Malik.
masculine and
Yeah,
feminine.
so I'm saying, so you're saying that Malik and Malika is the masculine.
So
and the feminine.
Malika is the feminine version of Malik, sort of Malik.
Right.
And Malika is the feminine version of Malik.
So what's most written? Is it Malika or Malik?
No, there's only one thing that's written, either Malik or Malik. There's no feminine version of that. That's written.
So that's what I'm saying.
It's a feminine word then.
It's a feminine word.
No,
then.
it's masculine.
That's not
There's
what
no-
I've been told by
there's no-
scholars.
there's no term marbuta.
Sorry,
So you're saying it's been made masculine?
no, it's a feminine.
But
The
Malik.
principle in it is feminine. It's not.
What,
they-
Malik. So
yeah.
why is there no term marbuta then?
That's why there's vowels in there. You get what I'm saying?
No,
The
but if it was
the vowels are not only for linguistic, yeah. It also gives masculine and feminine.
No,
This
no.
is what I'm saying. There's not 2 different words.
No, but
I agree with you. Do you get what I'm saying?
There's 2 kinds of masculine word
Right.
and feminine word. There's something called a ta'nith al-asli and ta'nith al-majazi. So there's 2 kinds of masculinity and femininity in the Arabic language. Yeah, one of them is what has to be identified by what you call the ta at the end of it, which is actually a ha. So it's literally one letter like that. Yeah, and the other one is a word in its essence which is treated as if it's a feminine word. Like for example, the word shams.
I know, but we think we're going too far here.
But that's like saying I agree. That's like saying Allah and Alat.
I know.
Right? So Alat is the female, yes? Principle.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So
Okay,
yeah, I can agree
the
with
thing,
that.
yeah, we're all going to text, but when the Prophet got the Quran, it was recitation in it. It wasn't written, he was
No
saying it
text,
out.
yeah.
So there was nothing saying, okay, write it like this. He wasn't saying write it like this, he was just saying it. So
Yes.
what word did he say?
Malik and Malik.
You could have said what? You have to say one word.
No, he didn't say what, because there was not one occasion where he was reciting the Quran. So if you recite the Quran 10 different occasions and he said the word Malik 5 times and Malik 5 times, then both of them are the word of God.
What word was revealed to him though?
Both.
The verse was revealed twice.
The same verse was revealed more than, like, he was recited 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times.
How many times was the verse revealed?
One time.
So one time you said one word was said.
But when the angel came, because there's a hadith on this actually, there's a hadith that says that Prophet Muhammad is Bukhari, right? Prophet Muhammad asked the angel to make the Quran as facilitative as possible for as many tribes as possible.
I know, I'm not getting all that, but I just want to get down to the word.
So that word was revealed, obviously, that particular verse, that one verse was revealed in 2 different forms, Malik and Malik.
So it was revealed twice.
Yeah, in essence, that word, there was 2 revelations. One with the word Malik and the other one with the word Malik.
I've got delay for these 2 revelations.
Yeah, because in the Bukhari, it said that he asked the angel to reveal it in as many facilitative forms as possible, and the angel basically replied to him that he will do that. So the dalil is that he asked God to do it, and God responded to his dua, his supplication.
So God didn't know that the people would know. Muhammad asked God to do it.
But lots of things that God knows. God knows everything, right? God knows all things. But the Prophet Muhammad's remit was to make dua and ask for those things, and then God would grant those things afterwards.
That means Muhammad was asking was God didn't know.
God knows, yeah.
No. If God knew, he would have done it.
No, there's lots of things that God knows, but like, for example, in my day-to-day life, in your day-to-day life, God knows what's going to happen to me, but He wants to see us make dua and supplication. You know, that's part of the Islamic ethos, so that He's testing us to see how we respond to certain challenges.
But to say something that we're giving a revelation, giving a revelation to the people, which is for their salvation.
Bukhari or Muslim?
See, this is the problem.
No, you read it.
This is the problem we're having.
Yeah.
The problem we're having is like with like the word Islam and words like Muslim. You see, what we're using is the biblical interpretation. We should say, or I wouldn't say biblical or Quranic interpretation, rather than what the actual word means, which I find very strange.
What do you mean?
Do you get what I'm saying? So you can say what Muslim is to be a Muslim.
Submit to God.
Right.
Yeah.
Too many words to explain one word.
Well, that's because
You
the
know what I'm
Arabic language is much more facilitative and rich than the English language.
No, I don't think that's what it is. I don't think that's what it
That's
is.
a big oxymoron. If one language is richer, you don't have one word for one thing. You don't have one word for 5 things. Don't make sense.
But in Arabic, it makes a lot of sense.
But I mean, that's oxymoron. See, that
So
makes sense.
you're saying
That's not richer. That's poorer language.
Muslim
No, but then one word,
Two-
one word,
One
like
word is
5
one thing.
words.
Submit
No, that's
to
equals
the
one in
will
Arabic.
of Allah.
one for one. It's
Why
Too many words.
That's
Too
it. It's
many
simple.
words. You understand? That's why I said it's a biblical or a Quranic interpretation
But what's the
of
problem?
what the word means.
I don't get the
Then
issue
it's
with
not what the word
Someone's
means.
interpretation.
It's an interpretation.
Someone changed
It's
the
an
word.
innovation.
So the word says this.
I don't know if it's an innovation because of the Quran itself.
But if the word
Okay,
means
why,
this,
why did you not say surrender then?
Okay, fine.
Which the word means.
I like that.
Right, thank you.
It is used.
You have
So
a choice.
now,
Translate as a
okay,
choice.
now we've got choices. You understand?
Yeah, translation.
It's submit to the will of Allah
or surrender to the will of
or surrender in its actual term. But this is modern Arabic. In actual Arabic that Arab people speak or African people speak in different parts of Africa. You know, you don't have to be a Muslim to speak Arabic, yes?
Yeah, of course.
Or no? So when I ask these people linguistically, what does the word Muslim mean? They'll say peacemaker. And it makes sense because Islam is peace, yes or no? Right. So to be a Muslim, yeah, or mu salam, yeah, because the mu is action, yes?
Yeah, it's
It's
the,
action, yes?
It's the one that's doing it.
It's the dua,
It's the
thank
dua,
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in salam, well, yeah, the rest is here.
But he
Peace,
doer
it's more-
of
peace,
peace to
maker,
doer of submission
Peacemaker.
to God. It has the 2 meanings.
peacemaker,
No problem at all.
peacemaker. So,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
somebody was to say,
And also submitted
let's go to
God.
the biblical. Let's go to the Bible now. Now it makes sense. Now it makes sense because the prophet Isa alayhi salam is going to make reference, yeah, that the people who come in the future, yeah, he's predicting now, yeah. His prediction is that blessed be the what? peacemakers. What is peacemaker? Muslim. So it's telling you, he's telling you that there are going to be people in the future of God who are Muslim.
Yeah, we're not denying the
What do you are? You are denying it because you're saying it's to submit to the will of Allah
Okay. Now,
or surrender.
now the word.
Which doesn't,
Okay.
you know?
Good.
You got what I'm saying?
But it's
You know
really,
the word
it's
Ayn?
Islam though. It's, what it is
It
that
has like
'cause-
10 meanings,
All right.
and it is one word. Ayn. For
Okay.
example.
10 minutes. There's 10 meanings.
Yeah.
One word.
One word. Yeah.
10 minutes
Makes
for
no
one
sense.
So
word.
okay. So if
Linguistically, it doesn't.
Yes, I can explain it.
The
more.
problem.
I can understand it.
So you put this one word.
Yeah.
You put this one word
Yeah.
with 10 meanings on a paper. When I read it, how do I know what it means?
Okay.
No, it's not
You
10
need to
words.
learn the skill of the language. You need to master the language. What can I do?
No, I'm asking. One word there, it's got 10 meanings. What do I choose?
Okay, so
context.
this is in every language, by the
You
way.
will get the meaning
that's
from
not
the
my
context.
Yeah, it is. I'm just like give you an example. If I write the word Polish, how are you gonna recite? How are you gonna read that?
Polish.
Polish, yeah. But if I said he, if I say write the same word Polish,
I want
and
English.
now, yeah, in English. All right, my shoe. How are you gonna read it now?
But English is a dumb language. No one knows this.
Polish, innit? So there
Dumb
are
language,
homonyms and there are words that basically sound the same and written differently, lion, like lie, and there are words that have the same spelling and different meaning and so.
Maybe
this
two,
is in
but
every.
not 10 though, Mohammed.
No, it can happen, man.
That's
It
too
can.
much. 10's a lot.
The word safe in Arabic has.
What if you're doing a test? You're in
Arab and English are languages were made up
The
for
point is
trade.
that language was never meant to be read in a
Arab,
vacuum.
Arab language was made
Yeah.
up. Arabic language is made up of many languages, which it was a trade area where the language developed. There's some people between different languages who had to develop words which everyone can understand.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's how Arabic was built up. That's how English is made up of many languages: Latin, French, Germany.
yeah.
So people can from everywhere can understand the certain words and pick up it quite easily. That's how it is.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing rich about it or nothing.
Well, I don't know. What would you define as rich? Because for me, what I
One
define,
word, one meaning.
but that's not rich though. That's quite one-dimensional for me.
That's what I want to make now.
Yeah, it's one
Common
word. Can only,
sense.
if you could do one more, it's multifunctional. If you
Common
could do,
sense.
if you
No
could do
mistakes.
more with one, then
You
that's
know what
more
I mean.
Deep though.
You know what I mean. There's no mistaking it. No conjecture.
Yeah.
So
but
that's
no, but
simple.
you can know what you mean with one word. But if that one word is used in another context, you might mean something
No,
completely
that's
different.
confusing.
So what, beef? You're trying to say it's Confucius.
It's not
Yeah.
confusion.
Well, every
You
language
just
has
need to
these
learn the
layers.
language.
It's
That's
Bunch of
it.
language, one word, one
If you
thing.
learn the language, you will know.
one word. Of only things with that straightforward, but it's,
This is straightforward.
the thing
it's
is,
difficult now.
The thing is, look, the
we
thing
use
is, what
English.
is language? What is language meant to convey? It's meant to convey signal, right? It's meant to communicate with people. Innit? The thing is, in everyday life, there's an infinite amount, right? And I use the word potentially, not actually. There's an infinite amount of possibilities. And if you have that kind of one-dimensional approach to language, then what will end up happening is that when it comes to conveyance, you'll be limited in your scope. Actually, the best kind of language is that which is most facilitative in its meaning. So if it has one word that can be used flexibly, right, and it has a scope of meanings, which means that it can fit into different contexts, then the functionality of
You've got
language.
more options to suit your narrative, basically.
Absolutely. So you can use that word, you know what I'm saying, in different options. So
Confusing.
if language
device, it can be
if
multiple
language is
devices,
meant to fulfill a communicative functionality, then the more a word can facilitate, the stronger that language is, in my opinion. If it's not meant for that purpose, then obviously you can say one word, one meaning. This is like a computer science type approach to language. Because in computer science, if the one word had different meanings, the computer would just say, I don't know, I don't get it.
Yeah, but the computer is not as complex as the mind.
But the thing is, there's a difference
Zeros
between
and
human
ones.
beings
You
and
know that,
computers.
isn't
Say again?
No, the computer is not as complex as the mind. You know that, don't you?
No, but it works in terms of like forms,
That's
innit?
why it's limited.
Yeah, exactly.
The mind is
100%.
not.
Exactly,
When I'm
right?
talking to you,
Yeah,
our
yeah.
brain can compute more than the computer. So
But
that's
you
not
see,
comparison.
like JavaScript and that stuff there, like Python, and which I tried to study for a while. You know, it's very difficult. You know, and even Excel. You know,
Yeah.
they have statements like if statement, this and that, like if equals this, and then put it in brackets and whatever. If you tell the computer something which is could
Out
mean
of
more
that,
than
more
one
than
thing,
that.
it was just goes, I don't get it.
Exactly.
But if we can imagine if we communicated with each other like in JavaScript terms, how dull and how one-dimensional language will be. There'll basically be no poetry. Your poetry would be impossible because all we'd have to be doing is linear communication. You know what I'm saying? Of yes, one meaning. You get it? So the stronger a language, the more it can facilitate in its meaning, rather than it's limited in its meaning because you'd have to have more words. For example, in the English language, by the way, people don't realize that the English language has about 800,000 words.
Because they've got many languages in one language.
Yeah, that's right as well. But do you know, there's another reason as well. Do you know why that is? Because each individual word is quite weak. So it can only fit into certain contexts. So you need more of those words in order to make sense of the world. But in other languages where languages are much more narrowed down and are not amalgamated by different kind of other composite forms, then you don't need as many words in order to convey a message. And that's why the Prophet Muhammad, he said in a beautiful hadith, he said that "Utit jawami' al-kalim," which is a beautiful hadith. He says, I was given the brevity and conciseness in speech. In other words, I will speak in minimal format and it will convey a rich array of different meanings. And the Arabs say, خَيْرُ الْكَلَامَ مَا قَلَّ وَدَلَّ. The best kind of speech is that which is abbreviated but gets straight to the point. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So
that's why our brother called himself. Kalam.
But for me, the problem is, yeah.
You didn't see the science of it.
For me, the problem
obviously.
is,
me and Kalam are from the same school of thought.
For me,
that's why he did it.
For me, the problem is, if I'm being told that this is the word of Allah, this is what Allah said, I want to know the word exactly said, not what it could have meant or what it meant. I want to know the definite word he said.
Yeah, okay, so the Quran gives us a formula for that. In chapter 3, verse number 7, it says, مِنْهُ آيَاتٌ مُحْكَمَاتٌ هُنَّ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ وَأُخَرُ مُتَشَابِهَاتٌ. So it says that the Quran itself has two kinds of verses. The ayat, the verses which are foundational, and they are muhkam, which means that they are not open to interpretation, and other ones which are ambiguous in nature, which means that they are facilitative of different meanings. So the Quran gives us, he tells us, فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ.
Does it tell you which verse is ambiguous, which one is
it tells you, yeah.
Exactly, which one? Everyone. This is ambiguous, this is not. This is ambiguous.
That's a really good question. So the question is, do we know, is there a full agreement on the verses that are ambiguous and the ones that are not ambiguous? And the honest answer is, to some extent. For example,
how can it be some extent in the Quran?
I'll explain. So for example,
it's like saying, for example, the Adam story.
Yeah.
Is that 100% fact, or is there parts that are ambiguous?
No. There's, first of all, the verse continues. It says, فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ زَيْغٌ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ مَا تَشَابَهَ مِنْهُ ابْتِغَاءَ الْفِتْنَةِ وَابْتِغَاءَ تَأْوِيلِهِ. So it says that those who want to try and create corruption or deviance, they'll find those ambiguous verses and follow them.
There's a test
that they're trying to create fit like corruption and so on, and confusion. And the ones who don't,
in ambiguous there is a test.
They say this is all from God. And it says, وَمَا يَذَّكَرُ إِلَّا أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ. Yeah. So the people of knowledge will know. Yeah. And Allah knows the verses. Now the point is this: is that there are some verses which no Muslim would ever disagree on. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ is one of them, which is to say God is one and only. No Muslim will say, no, I'm a Muslim, but I believe in two gods or three gods or Trinity, for example, yeah? Because it's very clear, it's like straight to the point. In fact, the word ahad, this word itself, is even more concise and more detailed than the word wahid, which means one. Because ahad means one and only, there's no possibility for a second. It's cutting out all the other possibilities with that one word. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. There's one and only, there's no more.
So one word is two words, one and only.
Two meaning.
One and only, right? So as ahad, there's no more than, you can't say ahad and the third, you can't, it's not possible. It's not, cardinally, because usually in language you have cardinal and ordinal numbers. So 1, 2 and 3 are ordinal, first, second and third are cardinal, right? You can't say that there's a second to an ahad. You can say that there's a second to a wahid, but it's not possible to say that for an ahad. So it's cutting up all the possibilities.
So ahad, this means one.
Ahad means one and only. It's only one.
But the
one
only
without
reason,
the possibility of a second.
The only reason you would make that statement because there is not one and only. That's the only reason you would make that statement.
What do you mean?
No, to say I am the only one and only, that's an instruction. You get what I'm saying? It's an instruction.
It says, say He is Allah one and only.
Yeah, that's an instruction. You're giving people an instruction or giving somebody, in a sense, the little. Yeah, to say, okay, this is what you must focus on, rather than the other things
Yes.
that you can focus on.
Yeah.
Because to say
Yeah.
that these idol worshippers
Yeah.
are not worshipping a form of God,
Yes.
you understand?
Yes.
It might not be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
Yeah.
but it might be Allah to them.
So
You
exactly.
understand?
So he's telling you that all of those other things are not God, right? This is the only way. He is the one and only, right? So the idea is, when you have certain verses like that which are not open for interpretation,
Right.
that's what we should base our religion on. The things which are clear cut and have no what you call لا يحتمل التأويل, which is not facilitated.
That's why I asked if the Adam story.
interpretation.
That's why I asked
In the
if the
Bible,
Adam
what
story.
the only true God.
That's why I asked. That's why I asked if the Adam story can be considered ambiguous, to know that the Creator created Adam with his hands from clay or a clock, and blah blah blah. We know the story, yes, baked and blah blah blah, and then blew the ruhi into the soul of Allah into that creation. It's all a process, yes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Now my thing is, I cannot demean the Creator. So for me, it's ambiguous. It must be an analogy. It cannot be real or physical because people are not created this way. And we cannot be related to this individual who is 9 feet tall, doesn't have a belly button, and was created from the dust of the ground.
We
You
don't know if he
understand?
might have had a belly button.
How would he have a belly button? For what purpose?
No, he don't look. The thing is, Allah might have created him with a belly button. No, umbilical cord, just a belly button. Why not?
Okay, but
He was created.
He could have been like that.
You are born. I am born. He's born. Everyone here is born by their mother.
So now-
my point is, this individual, this.
But
right.
on every theory, though, frankly,
Yeah.
on every theory that is out there, there was a first man. Yeah.
I hear that, but I'm saying even that
evolutionary
is
theories,
ambiguous.
Even they say that there was a first man.
Even that is ambiguous.
Yeah,
It
so
is
we're
ambiguous,
saying
isn't
that first man, the way
Because-
what's ambiguous about it is the kayfiyah, which is how God did that.
Okay.
Like what you're imagining with all those kind of like maybe like motion graphics in your mind.
Yeah, yeah, I
That might be in your mind. It's not the way it happened. Maybe.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's what I'm trying to say.
But we affirm the words of God, but the kayfiyah, how it happened, that's an imagination that we don't need to get into. We just
Okay.
affirm the words
Okay.
of God. You get what I'm saying? Yeah.
So then, what about Adam's parents? What are we going to do
So
about that?
we don't believe in Adam's parents.
Exactly. This is my point.
Why?
If you have all the text, all the original text. Remember,
Yeah.
the word Adam, Adama, is a Sumerian word. So we know where the origin of this idea of Adam, yeah, of the reddish brown ground, Adama, yeah, of the soil, yeah, came from. So we have to go linguistically.
So what do
We
you
go
believe?
to the
What's your-
Sumerians.
what's your
Sumerians is last 5 minutes.
So what's-
3,500 years ago, Sumerian.
Okay.
So
No, no,
Adam
no.
cannot be. Hold on one second.
Yeah, sorry.
Adam cannot be 3,500 years old.
No, we don't
Because there's a
believe that.
problem here.
We don't believe that he was.
You understand?
3,500
Egypt
years
is 10,000.
old. No, I don't think so, man.
Right.
I don't think so.
The biblical, no, the whole biblical accounts, according to Muslim, Christian, and Jew,
don't
6
agree with the
to
one.
8,000 years
We don't
old.
agree, we don't follow the Bible.
You still looking at us. You're still looking at. So in the
We
creation
don't
of
follow the
Adam,
Bible on this one.
according to the time, biblical
we don't have-
time,
we don't have time
and
for it.
Quranic time, would mean that Adam was created in a time when pyramids were in the background.
No, we don't. By the way, for us, we don't have that though, because we don't have a timeline for when Adam was created. So even if the word was not Arab, let's
How
say
can we not have a timeline for Adam not
when
created?
he was created?
So
we don't have
we can
that.
name every prophet up to. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
You said 25 prophets are named from
Yes.
Adam down to the prophet, peace be upon him. Yes. Right, and we say there's 144,000 or
24 years.
right 24,000.
124.
124,000. So 124,000. Yeah, but we can only pick out 24.
25.
25. Okay, 25. Something's wrong here.
No. It's only 25.
No, it doesn't
Something's
matter what
wrong
happened.
here. And they're all related.
What
Something's
related
wrong
how?
here. This is a bloodline being discussed.
This is the
You know what I'm
Bible
saying?
problem.
No.
I agree with you. but
This
we
is a
don't have
bloodline
it.
being discussed. The bloodline
I don't
and
get it.
of prophets and nabis.
No, but let him
Uh,
explain.
hold on.
What's-
This
what's
is the
the-
bloodline of
bring
prophets and
prophet from
nabis.
anybody.
What's the issue though?
Now the issue is the separation. The issue is that we can't count more than, well, most Muslims that I speak to cannot even count more than 10 or 15 out of the book.
Yeah, I can give you all
Let alone
25.
25.
I can count
But
25.
25 is obviously
It's a
nothing
challenge, right?
because he sent us how many? You see what I'm saying? This
But
is
why
the
does he have to
confusion.
mention all 125,000?
It makes sense.
All 25 mentioned in the Quran.
Huh?
All 25 mentioned in the Quran.
So it's 25 mentioned in the Quran. Some of them are disputed. Like for example, Khidr is mentioned as disputed. Dhul Qarnayn is mentioned as disputed. Is he a prophet? Is he not a prophet? There are some that are mentioned and disputed.
Look, man, that's another question. Eh?
Pardon?
Alexander the Great.
Sorry?
Alexander the Great.
Oh, Alexander the Great. Now, some scholars have tried to say that Dhul Qarnayn is Alexander the Great, but that's something which has been heavily refuted because he wasn't someone who's basically a monotheist.
Hell no.
So
Or just
no,
Antichrist, if anything.
so he
Alexander,
came
yeah.
after the Prophet.
Who?
Your command.
No, Dhul Qarnayn.
Yeah.
No, he came before.
Before.
Yeah, came before. Prophet was the final prophet.
Of course, Alexandra would even come before the prophet anyway.
Alexander the Great died 323 BC or something like that. He was actually, what do you call it? The teacher of Aristotle. What do you call it? Aristotle learned from, Alexander the Great, Aristotle taught Aristotle. Alexander the Great, yeah.
Yeah. Going back to some deeper
Aristotle, wrote his papers in Plato and what's the other one that he always
Socrates.
quite
Socrates.
quoting? No, he's Josephus.
Josephus.
All in Alexandria,
Yeah, never in
straight
English.
up. Never in Egypt, as far as we're concerned.
That's
You
why
know what I'm
Alexandria is
saying?
Egypt.
So Alexandria, yeah,
Alexandria
see,
is
this is the
Oh,
light.
yeah, okay.
This
He
is
came
that.
in, he called it that.
You know where it is. You go home, it's on the
what I
coast.
thought.
It's on the coast, nothing to do. You can see the Giza,
Have you
and
been
it's
there
nowhere
before?
near
Have you been to
Cairo.
Alexandria before?
No, I'm saying.
You have to come
Just,
down, man. I'll invite you, man. I'll come down.
oh, so that's where you're from. Oh,
where
you
I'm from.
see, this is my point. So this is a foreign colony within our within our African
You
community.
need to come there
that
and say
they
that to them,
focus.
man.
I will.
Yes.
Because if we're talking about the Ptolemaic
change the name.
dynasty as the last dynasty of Alexandria, and probably the only, well, not the only, but yeah, with the Ptolemaic dynasty is all they focus on. So when they do talk about Kemet, they're talking about Alexandria. They're not talking about Memphis. They're not talking about Heliopolis. We're not talking about any of these ancient things. So this is the problem where even my brother Callum, when he's being attacked about Kemet, is not the Kemet of Africans, it's the Kemet of Alexandrians who are Greco-Romans. You understand? And it wouldn't make sense that Europeans would only focus when they were there.
Karam doesn't believe in Moses.
You understand? Huh? He doesn't believe in Moses.
But
But it makes sense though.
You agree with him?
No, I agree in the idea that if you're making a claim about an Egyptian, you understand? Right. You have to substantiate, especially if he's in the royal household.
Was he taken out of
You
Egypt
understand?
or not?
So
But there's
what the
evidence of
Egyptians do definitely is on the king's list, his name would be there
but there
because
is
he was
that.
part of the
Can I-
royal family.
But do you know, because there is some,
But who was the pharaoh? That's the problem.
It's not an issue anymore.
say for example, we take that Ramses II was the pharaoh. And his direct successor was Merampeta, yeah. So in the scrolls of Merampeta, I think it's in like in the 20th or 30th line. There is a discussion of the children of Israel there.
Okay.
So it kind of fits in with that chronology because
What are they saying, Ramsey? Who?
in the Stella
Ramses, yeah?
Merampeta,
Yeah.
who I think came right after Ramses
His
II.
son.
Yeah, his son. So he wrote in his Stella, he wrote that you will find a reference to the children of Israel.
Right.
So that narrative, that biblical. Now the Rosetta Stone is basically found afterwards, and that.
So hold on, what, are you saying
the
that
hieroglyphic language?
the prophet Musa was not in the time of
You are
Ramses?
Now I'm saying that
They suggest
That's
it.
what- that's what's
It
in the
doesn't
Bi-
say in the Quran.
No, in
It
the
just
Bible-
says Pharaoh.
in the
not
Bible
an
there's-
issue, but the issue is Moses was in Egypt.
He's an Egyptian.
He's an Egyptian.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
right.
he was in Egypt.
Yes, he was in Egypt.
Okay,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you believe in this story.
In the
And
sense
he was a
of.
prophet sent by
from
God
the-
and so on.
Okay, so my point is the reason why Callum says it's not true or substantiate it is because the person name we never call ourselves Mos. This is not a Kemetic thing because Mos means child.
Now,
You understand?
I was reading once before.
Yeah.
What does Moshe mean? Yeah. And it's true that there's a book that I was reading in Arabic. It's called I can't remember the name yet, but it was talking about the names of the people.
Musha means water reach.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So he was saying that.
Bantu language.
Exactly, perfect. Yeah. So he was saying that. Look, actually, the word Moshe is not a Hebrew word or so-called Hebrew. I know. You don't know. He says hieroglyphics.
Who told you Hebrew no
He was saying,
language?
yeah, he says hieroglyphics. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's trying to facilitate your understanding.
Many of them.
But it says the water, yeah. So because obviously in the Quran, there's this reference that he was thrown into the yam, into the water and stuff like that. So he was trying to show, this person was trying to show the lexical significance of the word, the root word, because some of the words in the Quran are not Arabic. They come from a non-Arabic root, like from Moshe, for example, Musa. And so that's indicated by the language, by the way. It's called Mamnu' min as-sarf. But that is, he was trying to show that his name was connected to this old hieroglyphic name. because it wasn't a Hebrew name. So the point is, I think
Like how Muslims say Mithra rather than Kemet. You understand?
Yeah.
So this is the linguistic thing where people might see it as something different because we've got Kemet in our mind now. Yeah. You understand? But in the Quran, it's Mithra. You understand? After Mithraim, who is the son of Ham and blah blah blah, which goes into the Bible.
The thing is,
The Bible was, I am the God of Egypt, isn't it? This is in the Bible.
Oh, in the Bible, most definitely.
I am
Yeah.
the God of Egypt.
I'm the God of Egypt. Egypt to my people, all of that. No problem. But anyway,
anyways, man, thank you very much.
definitely good conversation. No problem. Yes. Come on. He's trying it. Cheerleader.
Light work.
Soft fairy tale killing.
What's good? What's been happening, bro?
Soft fairy tale killing, you know.
Come on.
Yeah, man.
Come on,
Big
man.
up
Everyone
COE,
knows the
man.
drill. Like, subscribe. Come on. Hey.
Light work, photo killing.
Fairy tales. Get me. Keep your fairy tales at home, man. You ever see us out here, we're gonna deal with you, man. Who's next? Who's
Simple
next on the menu?
questions. Simple questions.
Simple questions. No animosity. I like Mohammed Hijab. He done his thing, man.
Yeah.
He tried. You know what I mean? He had a couple aiders of Allah with him. You know what I'm saying? Some helpers, but it's all good. I love that. You get me? Respect that. That man can have a decent discussion, and you notice there's no argument, no problems. That is what Speaker's Corner is about.
Gang.
Content over everything. From your
Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
My name's Del Mamie. Behind me are a load of Europhile snail eaters who hate Princess Diana. These losers think you can remain in the EU, even though 17.4 million can't be wrong, and 16.8 million definitely can be. Here we've got a number of bi-curious losers. Sir, you go. No answer. And you can see there once again, Remainers don't know what they're saying at any time, at any point. But there are a lot of people on drugs over there and not enough police to deal with it because of the cuts.
The thing about Brexit, right, is that people